In this video, we're going to talk about the reports and analysis section filters. So, quick overview of reports and analysis section. Up here at the top, you've got the different statistical types that you can look at. So we've got the summary that just gives us the overall look at what's going on. Things like score average, score to par, a green in regulation section, driving, scrambling, putts. But then we have these sections over here. One is for driving, approach, putting, scrambling, and scores. So you can go in and kind of drill down and get a better idea of what it is that you need to work on and how your performance is. Also, anywhere that you find any of these little graphics for graphs, if you click them, a graph will show up. So the graphs are a little bit different depending on which section you're in, but that is how you access them. And of course, I didn't finish entering that round from the last tutorial, so it's not reporting quite accurately. But this does prove a very good point that you have to put good data in order to get good data out. So the filtering section can be accessed by clicking on the filters button. Now in here, it's going to show you all of the filters that are available. And when it's collapsed, it's going to show you only the filters that are being used. So right now I'm logged in the demo account, which is an individual account, not a coach's or team leader account. So the only option that I have under player is myself, or the demo account in this case. And the from and to dates for the rounds that we've entered always have to be filled out. They can't really be blank. So make sure there's something in there. And the defaults are usually like tomorrow for the to date, and then from is usually January 1st of 2011 to make sure that all of the rounds are being included in the system. So the filters are cumulative, and what they're doing is they're deciding which rounds to include and which rounds to ignore, and it is at the round level. So in here we can look at specific rounds. If we add the round filter and just pick one, then the only thing that we're going to get back is information about that specific round. This is essentially the same information that you can get in the round section. And you go to view round, you get these options up here at the top, and these are the same reports. Now in the reports and analysis section, we include these because there's a few more statistics in here, but also for the ability for you to use our side-by-side feature so that you can compare two different rounds against each other. So we'll get onto that in a minute. The other options that you have are round groups. We've got last 5, last 10, and last 20. Now, of course, it's only going to return as many as you have in the system. So in this demo account, there's only 5. So even if I select last 10, it's only going to bring back the 5. But then we've got 10 best, 10 worst, and 10 median. Now, these are based on the score. So best scoring, worst scoring, and the ones in the middle. Now, it's labeled here as 10 best, 10 worst, and 10 median. But what's actually going to happen here, if I select one of these, let me turn that one off, you'll see that it's telling me it's only including 2 rounds. Now the reason I'm only getting 2 rounds back is because in this system, there's only, in this account I should say, in the demo account, there's only 6 rounds right now. So what it looks at is if it were to return you the 10 best rounds, that would include all 6. But then if you went to compare that with the 10 worst rounds, you'd get the same 6, and you would end up with the same data. So what we've done in the system is it first goes through and it counts up how many rounds it's going to include based on the other filters, which in this case, the only other filters we have is the date range, so it's going to include all of the rounds that I have in the system, all 6 of them. So in order for it to distinguish between the top 10, the median 10, and the worst 10, which is 3 groups, it needs to divide the included rounds into thirds. So what it's going to return is the third best, the third worst, and the third in the middle. So I have 6 rounds in there, which means there are 2 best, 2 worst, and 2 in the middle. And that's what it's returning back to me here and why it says that there's only 2 of them, even though it says 10. Now the reason we left it to say 10 best is once you get enough rounds in the system that it would return more than 10 for any of those groups, then it will only return 10 back. Let's turn that one off. We've also got course length, which is obviously the length of the course that was played. If you want to look at the longer courses that you've played versus the shorter ones and see if there's a performance difference. There's weather that you can compare against. There's the tee time, so if you want to see if your performance in the morning is different than it is in the late day. We also have the conditions of the course. If there was something about the course that was difficult, you can see how that affects your performance. There's also round type so that you can compare the differences that you have in performance between when you're on the course that you normally are at when you take lessons or when you practice compared to the other courses or even in tournament play. There's also the holes played filter. Now, it's important to note on here that some of the statistics in the reports and analysis section will strip out any 9-hole rounds, and that's because it's going to throw the data off if it doesn't. Because let's say you're looking at something like your score average. Well, the score average on an 18-hole round is going to be, well, about twice as high as it would be on a 9-hole round. So if you put the two of those together and you divided it to get the average, it's going to show you that your scoring is lower than it actually is. So in order to not throw off some of those statistics, we filter out any of the 9-hole rounds. But if you want to look at 9-hole rounds, then you can use this filter to make sure that they are included. Because by including this, it's only going to include 9-hole rounds anyway, so your stats can't get thrown off. So go ahead and use that if you want to compare what your 9-hole rounds are, and you can compare front to back if you want. And then there's the dates. Now, another important thing to remember on here is all of these filters work together. So it's a cumulative thing. So what I mean by that is it's going to use all of the filters. A good example of that is, let's say I go in here and I say I want my 10 best rounds. And as we saw before, that returns 2. But then if I come in here and I change the date, and let's say I put this to be last month, and I hit go, then I get this message, no data returned, please try and consider adjusting the filters. And the reason is because I've only got one round and it's incomplete that was entered in the last month in this account. So it couldn't bring back any of them. So something to check out, especially when you're using these 10 best, 10 worst, 10 median settings on here, is make sure that your date ranges are wide enough that it can return something. So the next thing, let me go ahead and put that back to something old enough. We're going to go ahead and we're going to keep this 10 best rounds on there. And then I'm going to come over here and use the side-by-side feature. Now the side-by-side feature allows you to do, as it suggests, see one report over here with this set of filters right next to this report over here with this set of filters. Now you can change them. So I'm now looking at the score to par right next to the summary report. So you can use it to see more in one report at the same time. Or something else that I like to do, my favorite report, is the 10 best versus the 10 worst. So you'll notice that over here I have the report of the summary report selected, and over here I have the summary report selected. So when I have two reports of the same type side by side, the one on the right is going to highlight all of the values that are different than the one on the left. Now it's going to highlight them either in orange, which means this number is higher than the number over here on the left, or in blue, which means that the number is lower. Keep in mind that on some statistics, a lower number is better, whereas on others, a higher number is better. So just because it's orange and blue doesn't necessarily mean that it's good or bad. It just means that it's different, and there's something there that you should check out. So that is, in a nutshell, all of the report filters. So give them a try, see what kind of information it is you can come up with, and figure out how to play a better game of golf. So with that, good luck, and happy golfing.